Well, hey, welcome, my friends, to the show that never ends. And we've got lots to talk about today. Wycombe. Yes, we're back. We're back to Adams Park, and Wycombe did the right thing and won, which is what we were expecting, what we were hoping, and they did a reasonable job of it as well. We'll talk about that. We've got lots of other little pieces in here to talk about, like the enemy. What's it like to be in a transfer saga? There's a lot been going on this week. No looking.
You got a quiz for me again?
Oh yes. Yeah, we're going to start with this actually, Kieran. I thought this would be a good laugh. We're going to start with the quiz. We're going to keep it down this time. We're not going to do 10. We're going to do 5, and we'll do Premier League one week, Liverpool the next. And the first question, are we ready, everybody? Let's see how we get on. This is Premier League. One player has scored a record of 12 hat-tricks in the Premier League.
Aguero.
Can you name the player? Okay.
It's only because I saw it like the other day on some random YouTube video.
Right, I've got to find the answers in here somewhere.
Okay. It was Aguero, was it?
Right, I don't know. I'll look in a minute.
Oh, okay.
We'll find your answers.
I've locked it in.
Okay. Who is the most substituted player in the Premier League history? He was substituted in a record of 134 games.
And I'm not getting options for these.
No. I haven't looked at the answers either. I'm wondering about Crouch. Was he always?
It's substituted on, in which it's like Crouch, Defoe, Sturridge, those sort of players. Substituted off though, there's a different story.
It doesn't say, does it?
I'm gonna say it might be from one of those, to be fair, because they just complete for 90 minutes. I'll go Defoe.
Right, who is the player to have scored the most headed goals in the Premier League? Crouch. Okay. One player scored a record 9 headers in one single Premier League season. Is that all? Is that a record? Can you name the player? Is that all?
Yeah, they happen less common than you think.
Right, because Matey Boyd at Wycombe have just signed up front. All these goals are headers.
Yeah, it's either. I've got 2 names in my head. For some reason, I've got Steve Bruce in my head because I think he scored like 15 one season.
The ball kept hitting him on the head, did it?
I think,
and he couldn't get out the way fast enough.
I'm going to go with Giroud.
Okay, that's a good answer. One player assisted a record of 20 goals in one single Premier League season. Can you name the player?
Thierry Henry.
Okay. Well, Aguero was the correct answer to the first question. Ryan Giggs was the...
I had Giggs in my head for most substituted. I just thought he'd be someone who could complete 90 minutes, but oh
well. Peter Crouch was, of course, the 9 headers in a season. Yeah,
I probably should have done that.
Duncan Ferguson, 39, was one player scored 9 headers, and the one player assisted a record 20 goals in the season was Duncan Ferguson.
No, it's Henri Muppet. Have another look.
Sorry. Yeah, Ferguson was
the 9 headers in one season. Crouch was the most headed goals in the Premier League ever, and Henry was the most assists.
Yeah, I like that.
I got 3.
Yeah,
I think
that wasn't bad. I'll let you off with that one. I think that's pretty good. How many did you all get? Please write the answers down. Tell us how many you got, and off we move with Wycombe. Well, where do we start? I mean. Name the best player on that football pitch. I wouldn't have given it to the guy that scored both goals.
You would have gone to your favourite player.
Who?
Do you even know his name?
Morgan.
Well done. Yeah.
finally, can he do that for the season? Can he actually do what he's supposed to do for the season?
Yeah. I mean, his interplay in the middle of the pitch and at the top was really good. He obviously got his 2 assists. I mean, the one thing with him that was just a little bit disappointing. It would have absolutely capped it off was that he had a really good chance in the second half.
And it went the old to the right job.
It's one of those that he's missed quite a lot of, and I said to you during the game, I think he's on a similar run to what like Firmino has been on, like Sanchez was on at United.
He's not a goal scorer, is he? He's not a Gerrard in the midfield.
From our point of view, his finishing doesn't seem to be too good. But I think I don't see why he couldn't finish that sort of opportunity. It's just I think he's got something in his head because he hasn't scored a decent goal for a very long time.
No,
and so
do you think one and we're off?
One decent one. I never like this thing where it's got to be a tap in or anything. Like it's got to be something that they've actually finished decently well. And so it needs to be, a one-on-one or just like from outside the box kind of thing, in which I think he'll just get his confidence up. Either of McCleary's goals, if he'd scored those, then would have been fine. But he was very good though.
Yeah,
very good.
I mean, I thought when we were standing behind the terraces, because we like that, we're not like Paul
alphas.
Yeah, we're real football fans, we're in there. The interesting part was, I thought, was that first goal we thought looked really scrappy when we were standing there, but having seen it again, it isn't quite as scrappy as I first thought. It is a
the pullback and the finish is completely
excellent.
The 2 defenders completely missing the ball was a bit scrappy in that, but
yeah. And as for the second goal, excellent, wasn't it?
Yeah,
that was excellent. I am really chuffed about Wycombe this season. There's a lot of decent teams in there. We're not favourites. How long Ipswich take to get it together? They certainly didn't on Saturday with a draw. Be interesting to find out. I mean, they drew against Morecambe, I think. And Morecambe are one of the favourites to go down. So that was an interesting for Morecambe. It was a great time to play them. And very interesting, I think, this season is going to be.
Well, it was a decent win, of course, but it would have given me a bit more oomph if we'd actually gone on after we got our 2 goals and tried to get a few more.
3-0.
I can understand why we did what we did, because when we scored our 2 goals, like Accrington did have a few chances in which, if they were just a bit better, they could have done something with them. And in the second half, we limited them to pretty much nothing, and apart from their goal, but that was a deflection and a little bit unlucky. So I can understand why we did it, and we did do it decently well throughout the second half. But it's similar to like what England did at the Euros, in which we scored the goals we wanted and then just sat back. I just hope that we don't do that in every game, because it will catch up with
Ainsworth. I can't believe wants to play like that.
I mean, in saying that, I mean, Horgan probably should have scored his goal, so we could have got 3. But yeah, it just the second half seemed a little bit lackluster, and it would have been nice just to put, because we could easily, because they were not good. They were not a good football team. And yet they're
mid-table. They're expected to be mid-table, and I wonder whether this is where we're being a bit Sunderland in the idea that, hey, we're better than everybody.
Well, no, it's the first ever season we've had expectation to do anything.
Yeah, we're actually thinking we're not going down.
Well, it's not even that. Quite honestly, I don't like to have this I don't like to have expectations of what your football team should do, because it never normally happens. But if we don't get playoffs, I think it is disappointing.
Yeah.
considering the team we have, and where we were last season. So there's also that.
Yeah. Anybody else you want to mention in that game?
Obviously liked the back five. That was obviously good. Grimmer was very good.
He was.
Stockdale was best. His catching from crosses is absurd. I don't know how.
I know. Where does he come from?
Yeah, it literally comes for everything as well, and you're like, why are you doing it?
Yeah,
no need.
That's his area, isn't it? Yeah. I mean, they say make that comment or make it your area, but he does, doesn't he?
Yeah. I suppose we should mention the new lads. Really, there was a bitter left wing back who did his job pretty well. He looked like he could be a bit creative as well, which was nice. It is difficult to say whether he'll completely be Fred's replacement or whatever. But he was decent. Pendlebury in the midfield, I kind of felt sorry for, because it was obviously his first ever game in professional football, and it looks that way because their guy in the middle, even though was rubbish, was experienced, and so there was just a few things in which he got caught out by.
Who would normally play there?
Well, we had a Deneran last season. You got Bloomfields, Gape, Thompson. So he's got competition if he wants to try and get in the team. But you can't knock him too bad. He did some very decent things as well. A few tackles here and there, but I think it'll be a difficult afternoon against that guy. I
think the odd thing this year is I said to you earlier about who was it that was missing, and I totally forgot he wasn't even there. Who's played virtually every game last year in midfield, header.
Wheeler.
Yeah,
I
totally forgot he wasn't even there. I mean, that's crazy, isn't it? I mean, doesn't that make a change? I mean, 3 years ago, and we'd got the goalkeeper's trainer sat on the bench, who sort of, in his late 40s, and he was a substitute. And Ainsworth sat there with his kit under his suit, ready to take his his cowboy boots off. I mean, and yet this year, you forget Wheeler wasn't even there. He's got COVID, by the way, so I discovered that's why he wasn't there. But that's mad. That's mad. Things have changed, haven't they? Nice floodlights. Queue for a pint.
Yeah. Who else? You also had Vokes.
Yeah. What do we reckon of Vokes then? Sort of.
You could see that with time he'll do more than he did. He did look unfit, hence why he came off after 60 minutes.
Yeah, definitely unfit.
His first game for us.
I mean, let's be honest. Akinfenwa did a run faster than Vokes.
Akinfenwa did do a big run.
I mean, it was only one, but he did do a run.
There was a few towards the beginning. There was a few.
Yeah, so he's probably out. Pulled hamstring now.
Yeah. No, but that the time will tell with him. I think it was difficult. It's difficult to judge anything on the first game.
Yes. The only trouble with Vokes, I wonder, is he too much of a name, or he thinks he is, that he's not going to fit in to the Ainsworth - Wycombe way, where he has to fight, where he just thinks he's good enough.
Well, I mean,
that's what worries me.
Hopefully, because I can't believe that Ainsworth would just sign someone who he knows mentally isn't up for it. I'd like to think that the Vokes will put in enough effort. It's more of a social media or like people's opinion thing that I think could be the problem, in which the fans will get on his back if he doesn't start scoring, one every other game, one every 3 games, because they're like, oh, this is Sam Vokes. He plays for Wales. He scored against Belgium in the Euro.
He doesn't score many. Can I just
No.
mention that to everybody before you're expecting hat tricks? If you actually look at his record, he doesn't score many goals. He's not, but nor does Akinfenwa. For the hours Akinfenwa spent on the pitch last year, remember he scored one, and that was a penalty. And so he's not just there to score goals. And I think people have to remember that, and how much of him being there helped score 2 goals.
He won the header for the second goal, in which it got. I mean, he didn't get an assist for a goal, if that's what you're trying to say.
No, I'm talking about the assist for the assist for the goal. How much trouble does he cause that gives players the space to play and score?
If the second goal is something that happens regularly, then he definitely does his job, because he brought out their centre backs, which allowed McCleary to go through.
Yeah. You see, I don't think you have to judge the centre forward on how many goals he scores. I think you've got to judge him on how many goals he allows the rest of the team to score. And that's how we've always judged Akinfenwa. And that, I think, I mean, remember also Ep2 scored 6. That's not a brilliant return, but boy, was he trouble. And did he help Wycombe? And I hope that's what Vokes does. And I hope that's how people see him.
Well, I'd like to think people would, because it's not like we've ever had someone who's scored over 20 a season. So why should there be now?
Yeah.
Just because we've signed someone with a big name. It was I mean, Vokes was probably the person who made Danny Ings's name. So, you know, it's not his job to score the goals, even though people want to assume it is. It's why I still like Firmino, and no one else does.
I think people have to remember. Yeah, all right, we can come to that. I think people have to remember that Stoke wanted to get rid of him, and everybody was grateful he left. Before you think, wow, why would he come here? It's because nobody wanted him. And I think that's a big thing to remember.
I don't think we can assume that he's going to be the best striker in the league, which I think some people might.
No, it's going to be interesting to see what occurs. But at least we got the first game done. We won. Not many did they? Was it only 6 winners on something like that? Sorry?
So half the games.
No, there's a lot of draws.
Well, yeah.
A lot of draws.
So 6 wins, 6 draws.
Yeah. So that was excellent, actually. I think that was a good starting point for Wycombe. And now we got Cheltenham. We'll forget Exeter, the game. That doesn't count for anything, does it? Cheltenham. Now, they came up, didn't they, last season? And they drew 1-1 against Crewe on Saturday. And they also are expected in that little bottom group. And you have to say Wycombe are favourites against Cheltenham. And it's going to be interesting because we played Accrington Stanley, who are expected in the middle. We play Cheltenham, expected in the lower half. And then we play Ipswich. No, we play Lincoln, and they're expected to do well. I think the first 5 games is really going to tell us where we are. And Ipswich just round the corner. And Ipswich, of course, are favourites. They've spent millions. They had 40-odd players. They've got rid of most of the 40 and bought another 40. They've been raking it in. I think it was some nickname about, the checkbook team or something. I will do something about Ipswich. I will, but we'll wait a couple of games. It's difficult to talk about these teams after one game, of course, other than the game you've watched. So Cheltenham don't really know. I've looked up their forwards and they don't have great records either. They look a little bit not exact. Well, I mean, let's be frank about this. If they were brilliant, they wouldn't be playing in Division 1, would they? Okay. Oh, sorry. Let's move on to a very quick question. And that is, I've been meaning to ask this question for ages. And that is, how would Rangers and Celtic get on in the Premier League? Kieran, what's your opinion? Where would you put them? Let's not just say Premier League. Let's say Football League in this country. Okay, let's say had a shock. 2 teams got kicked out, needed another 2 teams. Some bright spark thought, I know, let's pick 2 Scottish teams and pick those 2. Where would you drop them?
I think the thing you have to, they would be Premier League teams, because the only thing that's stopping them from being any better than they are now is the fact that they're Scottish. If they were in the English league, they would have a lot more players wanting to go to their clubs, and so therefore would be mid-table, lower in the table Premier League teams. They wouldn't be top half; they'd be bottom half, but they would be there.
Name a team that you would sort of,
Rangers would be as interesting and as good as Crystal Palace. We're saying this after they lost to flipping Dundee on Saturday, though. Celtic. I mean, Celtic right now are probably a championship team.
They won 6-0 yesterday.
They won 6-0, but they are Celtic. They are, as much as people don't like to admit it, they're one of the biggest teams in probably Europe. Just rubbish. That's all it is.
But they were in Europe. They've already been kicked out this season.
Yeah, I think they would do very decent because they'll just have a lot more players who'd want to go to them. But at the moment, they are probably both a little bit below par in terms of Premier League.
So you're saying that just by moving into the English Football League, that would boost them enough that they'll then be raking it in?
Yeah, no doubt.
You see, I was thinking this. I've always thought, if they come into our league, there'd be nothing. They're no good, and all the Scottish people behind the goal jumping up and down, saying how great they are. I don't think they're great at the moment, but then they earn nothing for TV rights.
No.
Well, just going into the Premier League and adding that money would be massive. That you'd be handing them. I mean, look what we looked at on when we did a money thing, and what they would pick up. They'd be picking up 100 million extra a season. They'd be well off. They'd be thinking, shall we buy Messi this season? I mean, they would be bigger than, at the moment, Barcelona. Actually, they'd be getting more TV money coming in than PSG, in fact. Celtic and Rangers, I think, if we let them into our leagues, would, after a couple of seasons, you would find them in the top half.
Yeah.
The support they pick up, and that is why they never will, I might add, because nobody's going to vote them in.
No.
Because the top 6 don't want it a top 8.
It would be that, wouldn't it? It's in terms of fans and stature of club, they're bigger than Man City for definite. They're probably bigger than Chelsea. They're probably even bigger than Chelsea. They're not bigger than Liverpool and United, and that's probably about it. But given time in the English league, I don't think they'd be far off.
I mean, the TV money alone would boost them that their players would start coming in and they would start picking up the best. They've got the support, the whole of Scotland, for goodness sake. So why can I ask that? I mean,
I'd almost like to see it at some point. Not yet, maybe. If the Scottish League does become so dead that literally nothing is happening, I mean, not a lot happens now. But if literally nothing is happening, I would kind of like to see it at some point.
Why doesn't this whole idea then happen? Why don't they get better? Cardiff and Swansea. We let the Welsh in.
Yeah.
Why hasn't the same idea happened in Cardiff and Swansea? They managed to get into our Premier League, but can't cope. Why doesn't it work there? Is there a difference?
I mean, I've never known or heard football to be as big in Wales as it is Scotland, but it's probably because Swansea and Cardiff have never done incredibly well. Maybe it's more difficult for them. If they had their own Welsh league that they were a part of,
there is a Welsh league,
and they would whop it.
They would,
and so therefore may become bigger as a result of that, bit like Rangers and Celtic, and so because they haven't been able to bump themselves up that much, they are just an average championship team.
So if you kicked them out, if they left and ended up in Wales, the Welsh League, for a couple of years, and then come back, it might do them a favour.
No, I think it has to start like it. If they went, I think their popularity would actually decrease, but because they've gone from the English to the Welsh and no one watches the Welsh League. Whereas the Scottish League has always been the Scottish League, and Rangers and Celtic have always been in the Scottish League. So I don't think it kind of works the same way. But I don't know why Cardiff and Swansea haven't done as well as they have, to be honest, because they are the biggest team in Wales. But I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Rangers and Celtic would just end up being a Cardiff and a Swansea. I don't know.
It would be interesting to allow the Scottish leagues and mix them with our leagues. Do you know there is a possibility of a cross-border league turning up? There's been a lot of talk about Belgium, the Netherlands, and what's the other one? There were three.
Maybe even Russia.
I can't remember what the third one was, but there's a big talk about that all forming one league, and that's actually a lot of conversation about that, and that might be one of the first to boost their own. Just to finish off on this point, and that is, if we were to drop them in today, there's an agency called the Sports Intelligence Agency. I love that. Sports Intelligence Agency. Sounds like sort of, sneaking around, working it out with a notepad. They've worked out that actually Rangers they'd drop them in today, mid-table, that they would start mid-table, and Celtic would start in the relegation of the Premier League today. And UEFA also have the leagues in order. And I believe, I haven't written it down, but from memory, I think the Scottish League is somewhere like about 30th. It's pretty low. It's not very high at all. But there's an interesting thought. Can't ever see it happening. English clubs won't let it happen because they don't want a top 8, and that is a good chance of that happening. Okay, next topic. What's it like to be in a transfer saga? Now, this is an interesting one. We've got lots and lots of things going on at the moment. Love it, love it. Oh, aren't we all rather bored with one or two? Please just jump in with comments as I sort of make comments, Kieran. Is I just, a few ideas. It's sort of, this whole thing clings to the media and it just doesn't go away. We want to get on with the football, but you can't mention Tottenham without throwing up at the moment. And it just, you get this picture of this moody big bloke in the corner who's had his sort of, wrist slapped on by Mr. Levy, and he's actually now isolating, because of COVID. Oh yeah, right. He's actually at Tottenham, isolating, training on his own. I wonder if that's to do with COVID or because he didn't bother turning up on a Monday when he should have done. Now, anybody remember Fabregas with that 3-year torture, leaving Arsenal to Barcelona? That 3 years that dragged. How long is Kane going to drag? What about Pogba? Is he going to leave Manchester United? Well, probably not now. I mean, he's had it, isn't he? I mean, he ain't getting to PSG. For goodness, they don't need him.
PSG's transfer window, by the way. Have you seen who they've signed this summer?
We're going to come to that, actually. I've got a list of the team. It is massive. So, let's start with the enemy number one. We have involved in all these things. You've got owner, you have player, and you have agent. Okay. Now, when we put all these people in order, who is Mr. Nasty? Who is enemy number one? Who's the guy trying to sort of talk to his little players? Like, we want to move on, get more money over here. Player, innocent, doesn't understand all about money. So just does as what Mr. Nasty owner what Mr. Nasty agent tells him to do. Really? Does Kane, does Messi, crying in front of the cameras? Do none of these people actually know what they're doing? Is the agent really Mr. Nasty? In fact, the agent is the guy who turns the players' heads. And there was one I remember, and he was actually told by the owners of the football team to just bugger off and leave us alone because he just got on their nerves. It might have been Pogba's agent, but I'm not saying.
By the way, Pogba's agent is the same as Haaland's, so that'll be interesting.
Next year,
yeah.
Next year. So, what's been going on? What do the players risk by saying they want to move?
Are you asking me?
I'm asking you. Okay,
well,
so
according to your sheet of paper,
it
says relationship with owners and fans and public outrage.
Does it? Let's have a look at a few, shall we? So Kane's attitude of pushing it to the point of not turning up and then denying all responsibility of not turning up, which is rubbish. What's he done for his career?
Not a lot in the end, because he's not going to go anywhere. But I think in terms of relationships with different people, it's probably made Levy a bit miffed, and so that doesn't help him in terms of trying to get a move away. I think his own fans, I think they're a bit in the middle where they're like, we want to say something in terms of how we dislike what he's done, but we also fully appreciate that for him to do anything in his career, he has got to move away from our club. But we don't want to say that, so we're going to be outraged about what he's just done. We're
crap, so if he's going to do anything, he needs to go.
Yeah.
But dare we say that?
And then there's the pundits who are like, oh, I can't believe he's missed training. That's unbelievable. How can he do that? And then there's fans of every other club being like, well, he's got to do that because it's what everyone does these days for whatever reason.
Yeah, and I don't think
it really ever works. People not turning up to training because, I remember Coutinho not having a pre-season. We still didn't sell him, and then Barcelona said, "Oh, I'll have 140 million," and we were like, "Okay, we'll have that." It doesn't normally work.
Kieran, when were you born? What year?
01.
Right. I should know that. I'm his dad.
Yeah.
Or at least that's what I'm told. 2004, there was a very interesting case. There was a player at Liverpool. Have you read this in any books?
Your sheet of paper
Yeah,
says
my sheet of paper. In 2004, Stevie G was offered 20. Liverpool were offered 20 million for him to go to Chelsea. And for 4 days, Stevie G spent soul searching about leaving Liverpool, and he couldn't do it. And he actually said no. He sort of wanted to, but decided not to. He spent 4 days trying to figure it out in his head. And then 1 year on, in July in 2005, he thought, I'm going to go now. He really, this is sad, wanted to play for Jose Mourinho. He rated Mourinho so high, he was prepared to leave Liverpool and go to Chelsea.
Back then, Mourinho wasn't bad, was he?
16 years ago, Mourinho wasn't bad. Liverpool then came out with a statement that shocked Gerrard. He was so hurt. He wanted Liverpool to fight for him, but they didn't. They just said, that's great. We'll just use the money. We can use the money really well. We could do all right out of this, actually. And Gerrard went into shock. He thought he was loved at Liverpool, and suddenly you had fans burning his shirts outside the ground and the team saying, yeah, off you go, we'll have the money. And this
is after he won the Champions League by himself.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Yeah. There was Judas, traitor side, everybody said, I mean, this poor bloke, I mean, he only wanted to change jobs as such. Even the club doctor had to go round his house to help him because of his nerves. Okay. He was having a real bad time of this. And in the end, his father, girlfriend, I don't know, that ended up his wife, I presume he's married, yeah, and friends all had to try and help him and comfort him because of the way he was being treated. And he thought he was God. And suddenly he was Judas. And guess what? He stayed. Because his whole nervous system couldn't cope with the idea of moving. He just could not cope with the whole situation. So what can players do? The problem with Stevie G was, of course, he's a nice bloke. And he didn't do anything. But you just said, what can players do? Well, they can have a one-to-one with the manager and say, look, I really do want to move.
Have a gentleman's agreement.
Exactly, yeah. Then they don't turn up to training. Okay, we've had a few of them, and then they talk to the press. And that's what Sterling did. He went through that whole system. And that is what Kane's done, but it hasn't worked. Alex Ferguson, the manager of, when Berbatov wanted to get from Tottenham to United, actually commented and said it's more painful than his hip replacements. Players usually, though, are on the players' side because they see that, somebody wants to improve their career and they're quite... So Kane, probably Tottenham players are probably on his side and they'll see they might have these fights in the future. And also, let's not forget, these teams can, at any moment, when bringing a new manager, and you can be put on the sidelines. So they don't care for your career.
No.
Either. I mean, you can just be dropped and gone, and you might never play another game. So let's not pretend it's just footballers being horrible.
At the end of the day, the thing that has got Kane in the mud is only himself. because he should have known when he signs that sodding contract
6 years.
that
What was that?
Levy was sitting there just like, oh my word, how on earth have I done that? I'm just going to be able to keep this bloke forever, essentially. Even though surely you can be optimistic in football, but surely Kane knows that there was much realism in Tottenham not winning anything.
Surely when you sign a contract, it's 3 years. And after 2 years, you sign another one. Because if you get dropped, you can get out. There's within a reasonably short space of time, you can get out. And with 1 year left, you can keep extending it if you're doing all right.
Yeah. Well, I think it just depends on like your relationship with the club and who you are and what the club is doing. Like, I would have thought for Kane it'd be unbelievably obvious that a 6-year contract was not the thing to do, especially with that owner and how
especially with that club
and how that club is run. Whereas Trent has just signed a 6-year contract with Liverpool, but that was obviously going to happen because Liverpool are in a chance of winning things, and he is Liverpudlian and is likely going to stay there his whole life. So it makes sense.
And you also know who is the next manager, don't we?
Know who the next manager is. Liverpool are a club who will sell, like we did with Coutinho, like we did with Suarez, like we did with Sterling. So if worse comes to worse, he would be able to leave. Whereas Spurs have never had a player as big as Kane with this owner. And so therefore he was never going to know whether he was going to be able to leave or not. Apart from Bale, but they offered 90 mil at the time, which was a world record transfer fee. Whereas to be a world record transfer fee now, you've got to pay 300 million. That's not going to happen.
You see, there is no loyalty in football. And we all sit there judging the player, the agent, the football team. But the fact is, there is no loyalty in football. We see our friend Akinfenwa up front for Wycombe, and everybody cheers him on and cheers him on. But I've read his book, and Northampton, he's a Northampton fan, not a Wycombe fan.
But he's... At the end of the day, this is a job.
It's a job. And like my job and like your mum's job and like blah, 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 you put all your effort in. But in the end, when you move and change jobs, so your heart goes with you. And I think people behind the terraces judge the players working on the theory those players on the football pitch love their team as much as they do. And they don't.
People want to see, like your Messi who have stayed at their club the whole career. Totti, Ferrova. I'm bringing out really weird names, but these are the ones I've just seen recently because of Messi. And I'm afraid no players do that because you just can't. If I wanted to play for Wycombe my whole life, I would try, but it just wouldn't happen. Not because I'm rubbish at football. I'm
gonna finish this. You can say something at the end, and let's say if there's anything else you want to bring up on this. We are going to bring up a little bit about PSG in a minute, but Jack Rodwell. Now, does anybody? I don't know how many people watch the Sunderland Till I Die bit. Number one, I just want to mention you've seen our managers deal with buying players, because we remember when the owner wanted to buy a player, he just kept upping the price to buy him and ended up with a useless player for a lot of money. Talking of buying and selling. And the other one, though, was a guy called Jack Rodwell. Now, any Sunderland fan will remember his name. Do you remember what happened with Jack Rodwell?
Played for Everton, went to Sunderland, hasn't done a lot. And
then Sunderland went down out of the Premier League into the Championship. Now, Jack Rodwell took a £73,000 a week with him. They were paying him £73,000 a week. He'd done a deal with them, and that's what his wages were. Well, of course, they said nicely, any chance of cutting your wages? He said, absolutely not. No, you just keep paying me. And then they went down another league and they were still paying him £73,000 a week. The whole club hated him because they couldn't afford it. So he went off on holiday, and that's what he did. He was on a beach. He was being paid £73,000 and he hadn't played for 2 years. And Sunderland, because of the deal they'd done, ended up with a 2-year £73,000 a week player called Jack Rodwell. He had a great time. He did end up cutting it to £44,000 a week in the end because he was such a nice man. But they just had to, people wanted to buy him. But he just kept saying, no, I'd rather be here, thanks. And what he meant by here was on a beach in Spain. Never played again for Sunderland, even though they were paying him.
He was all right at football as well.
He was good at football, but so what? He didn't care. He'd retired on that, couldn't he? I mean, well, more for Sunderland, actually. I mean, can you blame him? The fans thought he'd kicked him in the whatsits, and he had, sort of. But Sunderland, what did you think you were doing? And there's another player that comes to mind on this topic. Messi weeping like he'd been told he'd be playing for Newcastle for the rest of his career on TV when leaving Barcelona. Why was he crying? Was it leaving Barcelona or having to play in France? Well, who knows? But what we do know is, my goodness, we won't go on about this, but PSG, my goodness, have they picked up a few players for nothing? Didn't even have to buy them.
They've spent, I think, 50 mil this summer, but they've got Ramos from Madrid, Hakimi, who is in the same kind of bracket as Trent as for right backs, Wijnaldum on a free, Messi on a free, and Donnarumma, the Euros winning goalkeeper who won man of the tournament, on a free.
Yeah. And you know, the daft thing is, would you know that Barcelona couldn't afford him? Simple as that. They'd had their wrists slapped for paying out too much money. They had to make cuts, blah, blah, blah. They weren't allowed to pay for him. They'd been out and bought 4 new players before he left.
That's the thing now. Have you seen rumours that Aguero wants to leave already because he was promised that he'd be able to play with Messi? And he hasn't actually signed a contract yet. So I think Sergio's a bit miffed.
So PSG, they're not going to pick up much money for TV money because that's just fallen apart.
Shirt sales, though.
Shirt sales. Is this going to cripple La Liga?
Yes. La Liga's gone. It's not. I don't know why he would want to go there, but they have to get Mbappe. The league has to get Mbappe for it to be any relevant. Because that is the thing. Because apparently, with Messi going to PSG, it means that the odds of Mbappe going to Madrid are much lower. Higher, lower. It is much more likely. And for them to be relevant at all, he has to go there. Or Haaland, but preferably Mbappe because he is probably the next biggest name. But I don't know why Mbappe would want to go there unless he likes money, which he evidently does because he's gone to PSG.
They're going to win the Champions League, Kieran, surely.
PSG?
Yeah.
Have to.
But they've crippled the French league.
Yes. And so the problem they've had every season is that they haven't played any decent teams up until that point, and then they play a Man City or a Juventus, and they're not up to speed with it, and so go crashing out.
How long have we been on this? Just out of interest, any idea?
No idea.
No idea.
50 minutes, I think.
Right. Well, should we leave that here? I mean, I was going to talk about the charity shield, but community shield, in fact.
We might as well talk about Grealish, because that happened this week.
Yeah, I've got to say, I thought their kit was shocking. And seeing Grealish come on in a white shirt at the end and seeing them lose was very similar to something that happened a few weeks ago, wasn't it? White shirt, on comes Grealish.
Yeah.
And then we get kicked out with penalties. I think on the plus side, Leicester looked rather happy winning that, and I don't think it made a blonde bit of difference to City, did it?
No. I mean, one thing that Mr. Kane won't like was the reporter asked Guardiola afterwards, she's like, "Oh, does this mean you need to go buy a striker now?" And he was like, "No."
No.
Oh, okay.
No, I think that's finished.
I feel sorry for Grealish because he's going to have an unbelievable amount of pressure to do extremely well there. And I don't know why, someone's just telling me that he's not going to live up to the expectations that people have. Of £100 million. There's £100 million for an Aston Villa attacking midfielder at the end of the day. Like, as much as I love him and I absolutely adore him at Liverpool, it's too much to expect from him.
I think the danger is we've never seen Grealish play against the best.
Or in the Champions League. So.
Exactly. Yeah. International. Never seen him play international.
Not even at the Euros.
That would have been interesting to see him have to play against international players. And we haven't. We don't know. We only know Aston Villa versus Wolves, really. Never seen him do it enough. And we've never seen him play with good players either. And so you don't get the full picture. I like him. I think he looked brilliant at Aston Villa. But let's be blunt about this.
I would pay.
So would you?
Yeah. I would pay 60 million for Grealish. I don't think I'd go any higher.
Ings looks brilliant at Aston Villa. And Ings is very good.
That's a good signing, actually.
But is he brilliant? And that is why I wonder about this. That's the only thing.
Liverpool got 5 million from that transfer.
Yeah. Yeah. Buendia, Bailey and Ings is who Aston Villa picked up
their team
for Grealish.
Their team does look pretty mank now. It looks good.
Yeah. I'd buy Ings. I think he looks one of the best. I think he should have been playing for England instead of Kane. That's my opinion.
Spend 200 mil on Danny Ings.
I mean, yeah, get rid of Kane and bring him into Tottenham.
Yeah.
I would. Right. In that case, so that game was pretty trash, wasn't it?
I mean, I only watched it for a bit, like 40 minutes, but not a lot happened, did it?
No. And let's be frank. What we've got,
one on the penalty.
We have a problem for Manchester City. If you're going to beat them at the beginning of the season. They haven't got their team back. They haven't trained as a team. And when they kick off, be the first time their players have actually turned up. They've all been off. You had all the players missing. How many of those players that played will be playing in the first team? Not, I don't know, 5. So Manchester City, if you're going to beat them at the beginning.
Can we please beat them at the beginning? Can we beat them just the whole way through?
That's what happened last season.
Yeah, they still won it. Because otherwise this league is gonna turn into a one team league. We don't want that. We don't want that.
No. Who's going to win the league then? We can have a look at next week, but I'm not. Should we look at next week and the scores? And just have a quick look and see if there's any comments you want to make about the
any games next week.
Yeah, well, I don't even know who's playing who. I mean,
Liverpool playing Norwich.
Liverpool playing Norwich. Good luck, Norwich. Oh dear. Bye, Norwich.
No, they're down.
They're down.
The first game of the season is Brentford against Arsenal. We've seen Arsenal's pre-season. They haven't won a game.
I like Brentford. I do. I said last season all the way through Brentford are going up. Will he be enough?
I kind of don't want it to happen, but Brentford aren't going to win that. They just are. And Arsenal fans are going to want the season to end after the first game.
Yeah.
Man United Leeds, that's pretty big.
That'd be interesting as well.
They looked all right in pre-season. United.
Yeah.
Anyone else interesting? Leicester Wolves could be interesting. Chelsea Palace.
Who's in charge of Palace now?
Vieira.
Oh dear. I feel sorry for Crystal Palace fans.
I didn't realise it was the first game of the season. It's quite interesting. It's Tottenham versus Man City. I did not know that was a thing. Well, I mean, Kane won't be there regardless.
Why? Got ankle problems.
You think he's going to be playing for Tottenham against Man City? He's not going to do that.
You don't think?
No. He wouldn't want to.
Doesn't he have to?
No, if he's got ankle problems.
Oh, that's what'll be it. He will, won't he? He will. He won't be fit. That's what they'll say.
It should have been a week or two after, because then it would either be him playing for City or him playing for Spurs. The first game of the season, you can get away with not being there.
So we do know Kane will be injured. All right, we know that.
He's not fit.
Dear, oh dear. Isn't it pathetic? Anyway, with that, we're going to finish there. Hope you enjoyed that. I don't know whether to put the bits in between. Maybe not. If you can't be bothered to listen to it, all that's your problem. I'm not around next Monday. I'm afraid you're going to have to go without.
Oh, no.
I'm on holiday.
Shall I just talk to myself?
The week after, I'll be back on the Sunday, so we should be able to. We'll fit one in then. But I'm afraid next week you're gonna have to go without and maybe put up with somebody else waffling on another radio program. Sorry, everybody. But with that, we'll say goodbye. Kieran, say goodbye.
Bye.
And it's goodbye from me. Goodbye.